Okay, so yeah, let's start. Let me share my screen. You can go to mute.
Yeah.
You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So our topic today is monitoring. It's not a really deep dive. It's more an overview of our tools we have or we use currently. Yeah. So the agenda is I give you a brief overview over what tools we have and where we use them. And this is kind of like an overview what tool is responsible for what. So for instance, hardware, performance counters, URL tracking, log analytics and notification, DB, UI stuff, data insights, code insights, and whether it has a Slack integration or not. So I'll post that all on Insight too. So you can check it all the time. So our first tool I want to mention is the PRTG. It's also known as the ASMON, the system monitor. It is mainly used to track our hardware health and the performance of URLs. It's used by the ITD, so they have this on-call service. They need to be there for 24 hours, 7 days. Also, yeah, during the night, of course. And if a counter there is bad, it leads to an alarm, a notification, and it sends them a phone message, an SMS. So we devs have just read-only access there currently, but we can have a look at all those performance counters. It looks like that. There you can see, for instance, the tracking of the URLs. So the first one is the Startseite, means the homepage of AS24. And it calls that page very frequently. You can see then statistics, how how long it takes for the site to respond, and there you can see, oh, you had a peak here, so something happened here. Yeah, you can have it for really for almost a year, so you can see, okay, at this time the main page wasn't performant or wasn't very well performing, like 300 milliseconds. And this is yeah, how it looks like it does in average over the year. So whenever you do a release, for instance, and you're a little bit scared if it affects the performance, you can check these markers and see whether your code changes where you were a little bit scared could or did lead to performance decrease or increase or whatever. So you can see that here. There, but that's not only the home page, it's also like the search and the login mask and so on. So you can have it for a lot of, also the CDN URLs. What's behind such a performance counter? You can see it here under the settings. It does nothing else than calling this URL. Okay, this one does a redirect too. Yeah. And whenever you, for instance, if we, on our incident plan, if we say that if the site is down or the login screen doesn't work or whatever, we need to check with the ITO that we add this case as a test here. So they will get a phone call also during the night if something is wrong there, so they can handle. So again, PRTG monitor mostly used for hardware performance counters and URL tracking. Yeah, let me show, for instance, also a hardware one. For instance, the SQL DB. And there you can see the CPU load. Also for, let's say, for 2 days. Let me show you it in total. And what you can see, for instance, here is during the day, the CPU power increases, and there you also see where our prime time is. So it's between 8 o'clock in the evening and 10 o'clock in the evening. So where people already ate their dinner and they'll have time to go on AutoScout to search for a car or to do an ad or a listing, and then they go to bed. And you see during the night we have some peaks, and normally there's not much traffic during the night, but what we do here is we have a lot of cleanup jobs during the night. So to delete listings and so on. So this also costs a lot of performance, or we do like statistics aggregations. So we summarize data, and that costs a lot of performance. If we would do that during the day, we would have problems and people could get affected. But yeah, so that's why we do it during the night. And as you can see, on the DB side, there's not much a problem about the CPU usage at the moment. It's around, let's say the peak time is around 30% is used, so there's still potential. But I'd say I wouldn't, we once had the CPU at around 100% during prime time, and that's quite scary. So we always need to have a situation that the CPU usage doesn't go up than more than, let's say, 60%. Live data, for instance, is what it does currently, or uses currently. Yeah, and you have this not only on CPU, you have metrics for the memory usage, the uptime, also application pools, how the application pools behave, how much memory they're using. So really a huge amount of information about the health of our systems. There you can also see the Redis cluster, the CDN load balancer, Autoradar itself. So everything is here, the front-end servers. So if you need access here and you don't have at the moment, just ask the ITO, they will give you access. I think every dev should take a look at this tool, because just to be like, yeah, I mean, you're responsible for what you're doing. And here you can see how our code behaves on the machine. And yeah, so that's mainly it for the PRTG, aka the system monitor. Again, I will share all information on Insight about our monitoring tools and how you can connect them. Yeah, accounts are mainly managed by the IT operations. So next one, that's more for backend developers. So I mentioned the stakeholders here. So it's the whole ITO and ITD for PRTG. Here, ITO and mainly ITD backend, but I'm sure that other developers are also interested in how the DB health looks like. There you can see also a lot of DB performance counters. It's a tool from Redgate. They have a lot of strong tools there. We also use, for instance, a tool from Redgate to synchronize our databases, so the int and the live DB. So synchronizing schemas, data itself. So very powerful tools they have. They call it the Redgate tool belt. This is the Redgate SQL monitor we've licensed. And here you also can see that the CPU usage on the SQL server. You can see the disk I/O we have, the wait times. Yeah, this is for AutoScout. We also have it for FineScout, Anivis, and EmoScout. We are able to compare our values with them. As you can see, for instance, EmoScout is a little bit, yeah, also around, okay, that's during the night. They're also around like, yeah, between 12 and 20% of CPU usage. They have a little bit higher wait time than we have. So sometimes if you don't know about what those counters are, I will show you later. They mention also a lot, but you can also compare it to the other DBs from the other verticals. Here again, overview our CPU memory, weights, disk I/O. Then we have the top 10 queries. You can order them by duration, for instance. So there you can see that this query was very inefficient. It was executed 32 times, not that much, but it took 23 seconds. So that's way too much. So it needs, in my opinion, some investigations. We have, of course, a query that also takes longer time for populating our in-memory search. That all happens in the background, so that's why it's not that a big deal if it takes more than 10 seconds, because the user doesn't have to wait for 10 seconds. But for things like that, like getting bookings and so on, I don't know where this query is used, but yeah, maybe if the user needs to wait for 23 seconds, that's way too much. So we have to investigate that. Well, the execution count is not that high. So when I use that one, I always like order descending by duration and see what are the most inefficient ones. And then I say, okay, these are not executed that much, once a day and so on. So maybe not a big deal. It can also be that it was executed during the night where we had a lot of cleanup jobs. So they needed to wait for getting CPU power and so on. Yeah, so you don't need to check them. But what I also do is not ordering just by the duration descending, the slower ones, also the execution count, because there you can see, okay, the ones that are executed most of the time. So this one is more than 530,000 times executed during the last 24 hours. And then I'll check if this number here is high, the duration and so on. So then the sum between the execution count and the duration can be a problem for the SQL Server. Yeah. Also top 10 weights and so on. You have a lot of statistic information here. General batch requests, also number of executions per second. As SQL compilation happened per batch requests, SQL compilations per second means when they don't have an SQL execution plan or the plan needed to be recompiled. How many user connections we have, locks and timeouts, that would be a problem if we have this one here. log weights per second, not that big deal. So this is the dashboard where you have an overview over our SQL Server DB performance. But what you also can do is analytics here. So you can get performance information on any SQL server we have here. For instance, the AS24 is the live DB, and this one is the int DB. So let's check the live DB. There you have the machine metrics, again, memory, disk, network utilization, average CPU queue length, and so on. You have, there you have the total memory that is on this server. As you can see, it's more than 80 gigs. Free memory, not that much because SQL Server uses almost everything. Again, compilations per second. So there you can see, okay, what to do with that number. Redgate has a super good documentation. So there you can see what compilation per second means. So this is the explanation here. And then they also tell you, for instance, guidelines. In general, compilations per second should be less than 10% of the batch requests per second. So then we can see, okay, this is around, or let's say 40, and the batch requests per second is around, 1,500. So that's less than 10%. Check our DB. We don't need to be aware of that. So what does that mean? If you don't use, for instance, SQL parameters, this compilations per second would be much higher because he needs much more execution plans to generate. That's why it's good to have as much parameter defined queries as possible. You know, we have a lot of we have a lot of search criteria on our advanced search mask. So in the end, we end up in having a huge amount of different queries that land on the DB, but it's still not too bad value for generating those execution plans. For instance, compared to EmoScout, they have they have a little bit more. This is the prod one. As you can see here, well, yeah, they have around 100 sometimes, and yeah, I also investigated during the day. They have more. Maybe that's also because they use OR mappers like Entity Framework or Hibernate more than we do. So leads up in having more different queries. That could be an explanation why it is like that on their side. But still, the value is also good on their side. Yeah. So this is all about what you can do here. Really a lot of information about the health of our DB. You can also do notifications here. To be honest, I didn't use that much, but you can define alerts. For instance, deadlocks. Here for finance code and so on. Yeah, IT operations did also added this one once when we had this performance problems with our CPU that was very high. So they I don't know what the alert setting is currently. So, but if the value comes upper a specified value, then it sends an alert to the IT operation, so they need to take a look at it because there's maybe something wrong. So huge amount of possibilities to track the health of the database, mainly used by ITD guys. Then we have the ELK stack, Elastic, Logstash, Kibana, Elastic the DB behind, the Logstash the indexing, and Kibana the visualization possibility you have here. I think I already did a session about that, but I don't know if everybody was in there. So you have the simplest possibility to like discover what's going on our web servers. So this is the IIS, the web server log file. So every request that comes to our IIS server, so the desktop web, will get logged. So we have the user agent, we have the IP address, we have the time that the request had to execute on the IIS server. So that's why what you can do, for instance, is also then say, okay, let's show me the URLs that were called on that server. Show me the query. So these are the query parameters. Show me on which computer they got executed. You can also show the status code. You can show the time taken. And now you can do, for instance, query time taken milliseconds equal or bigger than 2000. So the ones that took more than 2 seconds, the last 15 minutes, yeah, there are quite a lot, 68. So in most of the cases, it's Optimizer Pro related and RSS feed. So RSS feed is not that performant, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's not performing that well because we shouldn't use RSS feed anymore. The customers should now use Autoradar. It should be much worse than 3 seconds. No, just joking, but yeah. And you can also say, okay, is for instance the detail and CS /d. Oh, there were 2 detail calls within the last 15 seconds that took more than 2 seconds. Huh? And you can see which ones on which servers. Okay, there were 2 servers. Yeah, so you have a lot of possibilities. What you also have is you have the username, and if a user is logged in, you have a username here. For instance, this account is logged in. And if a user calls you and say, hey, I got phished, and I don't know what happened on my car park. Did something break? I didn't know. I don't know what the phisher did. So what we can do is then it says username equals this value, and then we can see what the user did. Okay, he went to the Optimizer Pro. he went to the optimizer detail and so on. So you have a lot of information how the user behaved. You can also see when he started to work or using AutoScout, when he did a break. Yeah, so you can see a lot of information about what's going on our SQL, on our web servers. We have it for the desktop solution, int. We have it for the DMS API, file upload API, which we don't use at the moment, identity server, mobile web, the native API, stats server, the responsive API. We also have F5 logs now. I didn't use it so far. We do have site spec logs. And I miss here the front end ones because I think we already had we had them once in the old solution. I cannot see it here, but it would be also great to have it for the node servers too. So you are able to see what's going on. Yeah. Well, that's just the simple discovery one. You also have more advanced stuff. You can create visualizations like that. For instance, what you can say is, give me the average time taken it has for the desktop application, for the vehicle pool, for instance. And, you know, last week we went live on Thursday, and with the stuff we did in the mosh pit, like migrating to the .NET Core architecture and the new architecture, and everything looked like stable. We haven't seen errors in the DB and so on, but I just recognized it by going to the vehicle pool, that the vehicle pool was very slow. So the response time of the vehicle pool was very slow, and then I didn't know, okay, is it a thumb up network or what's the problem? And then I used Kibana, and I did this query. So from the October the 6th, 1 o'clock in the morning till the evening. And what you can see here is normally the response times from the vehicle pool in average on every server is around 500 milliseconds. Huh? And here when we went live, you can see at 9 o'clock we went live with web server 1, and the response time is already much worse than before, like 5 seconds. And then we went live with all servers, and as you can see, the response times were really bad. So we decided to do a rollback, unfortunately a little bit late, but we did it. And we came back to normal behavior in terms of response times. So again, what you can see here is a lot of possibilities. If you're responsible for code or whatever, look, it wasn't the mosh pit team in the end. So and no blaming on any people. I mean, even me, I did things like that also in the past. So no worries. But what I'm trying to say is, you're responsible for the code. So if we go live, please use tools like that. And we also need to do a dashboard, you know, whenever we go live, not just taking a look at the log, you know, the exception log. So what we do right now is just checking the exception log in most cases and see, okay, there's no exception. All good, system behaves correctly. But here you can see, no, it doesn't. I mean, it responds, but really with bad performance. So we need to track that too. And now we also need a notification here. Currently, we cannot use it. I need to ask Emoscout guys if they now implemented it, but under the license we have here, we cannot do notifications. Before in the old solution, it was included, here not, but there's a lot of APIs, so we could implement that on our own to have a possibility to send an alert if the value is upon value we expect. After a few times, we can send notifications. But I will show later that we can do it also in another tool now. We bought a few months ago, and now we also have the license, so the proof of concept is done, and this one is much more powerful. So eventually we can do it there to track the URLs. But here you have a lot of possibilities to analyze the log files and see what's going on our servers. So why is it grouped that way? You can do a lot, like here. As I said before, the average, the query is the average. The aggregation is the average of the time taken. The group by is the computer name. So the web servers. Yeah, that's it. And the index pattern is this one. So you can use it for all the sites. Count, for instance, everything. So this one does a count over all our indexes. So you can see like there's every 30 minutes more than 2.5 million counts on our whatever we have here. But that's the F5 included and so on. So, but you can also concatenate the index pattern, so you can search stuff over multiple web servers and APIs. Yeah, so again, discovery is the simple one, to do a simple query and see some data. Visualization, you have a lot of possibilities to create visualizations. As you can see, a lot of different diagrams or performance lines. I mainly use this one, this TSVB. Heat map you can also use, yeah. And there's also the dashboard one here. You can summarize then all your visualizations on a dashboard. And this one, for instance, yeah, it's not a big deal. It shows you the number of requests on the desktop API, for instance, the mobile API, the mobile web, the web API, so for the responsive web, the native API, and the identity server. Yeah. And there is the average request speed on those APIs. So the desktop web is far the slowest one, but we have a lot of member stuff in there. So as I said, RSS feeds, optimizer, and so on, dashboards, those pages are not as fast as the search, the search result page, the detail, and so on. So that's mainly why. And old code. Code from myself. So then we have Elk Stack again. I recommend it for everybody or almost everybody. So ITO uses it. We devs, PMs, analytics team also has its dashboards. The SEO team, marketing, and so on. So yeah, a lot of insights you can get. but you can feed elastic DBs with any kind of data. So what you saw here is log files from web servers and so on. But if you have a case where you want to send data and to analyze these data and work with that data, with dashboards and so on, feel free to use it, and just check with ITO yeah. But I mean, that's mainly because we use on-premise software. In cloud solution, you have already things like that. I know. So that's why you use dashboarding solutions there. Stackify is mainly used by the backend developers. I don't know if the others also have a tool like that for having code insights, how your code behaves, really the .NET code here. You can see the performance, the server memory it uses, and so on, the CPU it uses. Then you can see there's like a satisfaction score on the code, and you can see the satisfaction score of the Optimizer Pro is really bad. So it's 0%. I've never seen things like that. So, but there's just one request within the last 4 hours. So yeah, I don't know if we should worry much. RSS feed is not a good satisfaction core, which is good, as I said. Yeah, HC is also an old service. We should move all that stuff to the partners API. Reporting, crystal reports have some issues. It can then go into that part, and you can see whatever it does within the code. So what you see here is the .NET methods. Yeah, but this is an HTTP module that was used. So that's a black box. That's from .NET itself. So you cannot do that much. You can also see the slowest methods we have. You can see the similar ones here. The ones with the most requests. So of course, it's the static files here. HC is very much called and so on. So really a lot of code insights, also on errors that are happening. Yeah, mainly used by .NET developers who want to see how their code behaves. That's also installed for, you can also do alerts based on markers. I know that also Nguyen used it very frequently in the past when we had code issues. So yeah, you can add alerts here too. I personally don't use it that much currently, but I really recommend you to have a look, at least to have a look at it. Yeah, so this is .NET Code Insights. So then there's the one I honestly, this is the newest one, and I don't know it that much, but it's really powerful. So what we have here, it can do almost everything. You can see the Finance Code does check Docker container status, so hardware stuff you can do here. We are mainly using the UX monitoring. So for instance, we can do synthetic tests here. Create a new test, for instance. You can do an API test or a browser test. So let's do an API test. Web app Let's, for instance, use, let me just search for something. For instance, a BMW. Do the search. Give me, well, that doesn't make much sense. Yeah, price from this one. So I just want to, let's say, track the SERP. So I do a get call here on this page. And I can also tell from where it should be called. So Europe or just from London and Paris. Then you can specify the frequency, how frequent we execute that much. You can do an assertion when response time is less than, so my test is successful if the response time is less than 1 second. Then you can define alert condition, and you can also define this one. For instance, you can say, okay, I want to do the alert to the AS24 alerts Slack channel. You can say, hey, check the SERP page. It's way too slow. And whatever, then create the test. And what it does then is we have a test. We can, for instance, run the test. Successfully launched. Okay. Refresh the page. Why is it still executing? That wouldn't be good. So the status is okay. Duration you can see here. So it executed the test. Well, I thought there's like 100% here. I don't know why. Maybe it's still doing it. But if then the response time would be worse than 1 second, it will notify us in the Slack channel. Here, where is it? AS24 alerts. There. Yeah. Well, this one is not the right one. We should send it to here, but it's not configured yet. So because this is what we defined when we had this 0 bug day, this is our monitoring channel. So here, and now if we have this definition of done. If you do something in the code, or if you do a new product or whatever, you always need to check whether this is monitored or not. And if not, just use those tools. So you will get notified if your product you built does not behave correctly. And as you can see, you can also set you can also post stuff. You have advanced options. You can set header cookies or whatever authentication information. So it's really powerful, really powerful tool. Yeah, you can also do synthetic tests. Maybe Nguyen could explain it much better. You can do browser tests. Here again, I need to hurry a little bit. Let's say this is the start page. You can give it the name, test, then again, which countries we executed from. Then you can do a start recording. You can say, okay, I click that button. I do the faceted search. I'll click the detail. I go to the next one. I just finish. So, and you can see it creates that browser test. I mean, we didn't define what means that when it's good or not. As far as I know, you also can do UI tests, so screen tests. Yeah, so really powerful tool too. But I'd suggest that Nguyen will do much more, a test with much more insights about how you can use it for automation tests. But you also have other automation tools, so maybe it's not the right one. But I would use it at least for API tests to see whether a request is successful or not. Yeah, this is the Datadog currently used by IT operations and ITD. You can also request logins from the IT operation guys. What we have else is our scheduled jobs. I also did a training session about that already. So this is in our admin. Where you have an overview over monitoring jobs. For instance, as I then showed you the anti-phishing one, there's like a SQL query, and if you get results based on that SQL query, it does send a message, a Slack message, or an email, which you can define within the SQL select statement, and so on. If you want to use that to send notifications over a SQL statement, I recommend to see the scheduled jobs training session. So 10 minutes left. Further, we have the Power BI server from the BI team. What we do here, for instance, is we, this is the Immo Scout tab. We have the Auto Scout tab. What we do here is we track the page speed index, the Google page speed index, and we track it for our competitors, for instance, Car4You, Auto Ricardo, Autolino. We track it completely. You see that that's where we are, a little bit below 50, but Auto Ricardo is way under, is around a little bit higher than 20. Autolino is better. Car4You is also lower than we are. So I'd say not too bad. And as you've seen, the SEO team's presentation last week, I strongly recommend to see that. that this marker or the performance is important, but it's really just a part of it. So the Googlebot gets smarter, and it is much more important that you serve your customer needs, so the user is happy and they'll track it somehow. It depends on how long he stays on your website and if he converts or whatever. So they have more in the future. They use more kind of those counters to index your page better than others, which does similar stuff based on keyword search. So before we said, okay, performance is one of the biggest counter nowadays. We say, yeah, it is still an important marker, but there are others that are much more important. So just see the SEO presentation from last week. Yeah, that's mainly it. You can also see how our counter behaves without the GTM container. If we wouldn't use GTM container, we would be here instead of here. And then without GTM and ads and third party, or without the Tialium one. So yeah, the pixel we have from Grenier or Mobi. I don't know. It's the Mobi one, I think. Yeah, same for detail. Currently not really working. The serve and so on. So this is the BI server, which does the page speed index tracking. Then we have Firebase, which is mainly used by mobile devs, and as far as I know, from front-end guys too. So you have Crashlytics informations about how many times the apps crashed. Yeah, I just used it once when they said, okay, we did something wrong on our native API and their application crashed. Then Jonathan sent me the info, which I could see here. And yeah, so a lot of insights. Maybe it would be great if someone that is using it much more frequently can also do a demo. What else you can do here? You have dashboards too. I think about how many times they got installed, or how many active users there are, users in the last 30 minutes. So really cool stuff to see here. Statistic informations, also from which countries they come from. Oh, Alex and Nemanja are working also very frequently with it, from Serbia, as you can see here. So yeah, no, just kidding. Yeah, this is Firebase, mainly used by, it's a cloud solution, as you can see. Then we have Hangfire job, also more for the backend developers. Hangfire, before we had console applications which we run during the night for instance, doing cleanups, exporting data to Anibis, to an FTP server, doing the Abacus export, so all contract and billing and the data transactions we send to Abacus. There are a lot of jobs that are running in the background. We built them as console applications, and then we scheduled them with the Windows task scheduler on a specific time. That could be once a month or daily or hourly or whatever. So you have a lot of possibilities there. But then when Kien joined the company, we came up with this Hangfire job, which is a job engine. You can add their .NET jobs, and you have a lot of dashboarding stuff too. So you have information about how your job behaves. There's like actually currently we have 4 jobs that are running the Facebook feed, for instance, the energy data import and so on. And you can see, let's job configuration, sorry, let's edit that one. Means every Friday, that's a cron expression. You can use a cron builder to build that cron expression. So that means every Friday at 5 o'clock in the evening, this job will get executed because we get fresh data on Friday morning from the Astra somewhere. That's why we schedule it to Friday evening. Yeah. And those jobs will run at this at a specific time, and you can also see. I don't know why the layout is currently not really working. You would see the failed ones. So if you have a job that fails, it will send an information to the Slack channel. That's also seeable somewhere. Yeah, I need to see with the guys why we don't have the layout currently. So these are running jobs. You would have an overview over if a job failed. And for instance, I got once this information in the monitoring channel on October the 8th. The WLTP import has a problem. Then I'll check what the problem was, and then I've seen, okay, they changed the location of the FTP file, so they used another folder. I just needed to update this one, and then the job worked again. So yeah, it's really important that whatever we have in our systems, if it does not work, we need to see that we send an information into that Slack channel. And now you've seen you have a lot of tools. I mean, there's not the holy grail tool which can do everything. You know, some are stronger on the database side, some on the server side, some especially for Windows, some from the cloud, but eventually you need permissions that are critical for our Slack channel. I don't know. So we have a lot of tools here. So I'd say based on that, what I showed you now, I'll do an insight block with the tool overview, also with that one where I and like a suggestion where to use, or a best practice where to use what, and yeah, and important for me is just use those tools because you get a lot of insights on how your code behave, because we are all responsible that our system works healthy. Of course, we have a product support team and we have QA and so on, but I don't want to see one dev that tells, okay, my code is done, I'm free, there are others who will test it or monitor it or whatever. So everybody's responsible for what he's doing. So just see how you can analyze or monitor or whatever the stuff you did. I mean, you can, in the end, you can do it together with a QA, and that would be even better to stick head together. So, okay, I'm finished here with this one, with this part. Go to the QA and tell, hey, how to monitor, how can we set up a test, and then you stick head together and say, hey, well, maybe the Datadog one is the right one. Let's just add there a URL tracking, and then let's do a notification where we post a message into the Slack channel when it's 2 times in a row slower than 1 second. So we all know, or if the status code, for instance, we had this Comparis one, that the Comparis API didn't work anymore. Nobody cares because it's the old mobile API. And if the mobile application still would use this one, we would have recognized it because the apps would fail. But now there's just the API for Comparis left. They should move to Partners API, but they won't because they are not motivated to do so. But the API failed. But we need to maintain it because we have a contract with them. And they said, hey, sorry, it didn't work for 2 days. We don't pay you for that time. So we get somehow punished for that time. So we needed to, we didn't earn money during that time for those 2 days. Yeah. So what does that mean next time or now? Add a Datadog job, do the monitoring and alert if the status code is not 200. And then if we go live and this happens again, we would be safe because, also safe, I mean, it happens, but we would recognize it before the customer does. So I'm 3 minutes overtime. Yeah, I hope I got some insight. I know it's really high level. We can go more into details, but I recommend to use these tools. Yeah, and let me create the insight block entry with the overview and so on. And then I also appreciate inputs from your side. Eventually, you know, also other tools or how we can handle stuff better for the future. But before, like searching the internet for like having other stuff that could help us, just use the stuff we have here because there's already a lot available, and yeah, use it for the part in the definition of done, like the monitoring. I'm responsible for what I'm doing, so I'm responsible that the code I wrote does run and is healthy. And if it's not, I recognize it very early. So that should be like the premise for everybody here. Monitoring, analyzing is not just a QA, ITO topic. It's especially also a dev topic. Agree, disagree, QA, feedback, whatever.
So for the G-core monitor, should we ask the ITO to provide us the account to access?
Yeah.
So we need to ask them one by one, or we just collect the whole team, the information, and send them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say just let me create it for everybody, huh? Yeah. Let me, because I think I don't have access to, no, am I administrator? No, I'm not. This is not a link. Oh, yeah, maybe I can do it on my own, but otherwise I'll send you invites. Yes. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, better. Can you the mic is, yeah.
You invite us to Datadog at Grab.
Oh, again, please.
Sorry.
Can you repeat it, please?
Invite us to Stockify and Datadog.
Yeah, that one I can do. Yeah, I think already almost everybody has a Stackify account. But I will do it. Yeah. So Stackify for everybody.
Thank you.
And SQL Monitor. For the Kibana, you don't need to request access. This is open for Flamatt. I'm pretty sure it's also open for Ho Chi Minh City, but you cannot open it from home. So whenever you do home office, I also sometimes use the Chrome browser on my local machine, but I cannot access the Kibana from home. Yeah.
Just turn on the VPN. If we turn on the VPN, we can access.
Okay. Okay, but you don't need users there. So what else we have? The PRTG.
Smoon.
Yeah. Let me.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot the account.
Let me create access to PRTG too. And also for the front end guys. Because the front end servers are there too. Yeah.
For the alert, is there any option that if a CBO is higher than the threshold or something like that, could we send a message to Slack channel or something like that, so the dev can focus on it?
Yeah, currently the
ITO.
Yeah, I'll check that with ITO.
At least when we deploy something.
Yeah, makes sense. To not just send an SMS to the phone of the ITO, also send a Slack message to all staffs. That's a good input, yeah. Anything else? I mean, we're 10 minutes over time. You can ask me also later over the development channel or on the Insight blog when I did it. I'll come up very soon, but I need to prepare for another 3 sessions on Friday. So maybe you need to have a little bit patient here. So thanks a lot for staying and have a nice day.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.